Alright guys, I got the 73 Nova I'm working on today, and I got a project here. We're going to try to get this motor running. This car has sat outside in the weather for 16 or more years. He wasn't sure, but he thought it was about over 16 years it had been sitting. He bought it as a project and never did anything with it, so I bought the project for him. And what I'm going to do is try to get this motor running. I checked the numbers on this block here, and the numbers match. So this is the original motor. What I'm going to do, I'm going to clean this up. It had been sitting outside in his yard for 16 plus years, so accumulated a lot of leaves in there. And I think I can get it running. Just got to do some cleanup work here. I got a vacuum cleaner, I got a shop vac. I'm gonna clean all those leaves out. We're gonna pull the plugs, oil the cylinders. I'll probably put some oil down the intake. Check out the valves in there. If I can see the valves, they're freed up. I might take off the rocker covers to just make sure nothing's binding up, and oil things a little bit, oil the rocker arms, so we get a good chance at starting this. I'm not sure about anything here. It looks like, I know it's got oil in it, that's about the only thing. And the brakes do work. This is like one car I've bought that the brakes actually work. Usually most times the brakes don't work when a car's been sitting that long. This says all drum brakes. It looks like, you know what, this says I can't believe it's got a 3-core radiator. Probably because it's an air conditioning car. So that's good. What I'm going to do is just want to get this 307 running. Here's the emission sticker. You can see it was originally a 307 2-barrel. Federal emissions. So I just want to get this running. I'll see if the engine transmission's any good. I'm going to save the original motor. I'm going to swap a 406 cubic inch small block Chevy in here. But first we're going to get this running, so here we go. Start doing some cleanup on this. There's so much leaves in here. And some of these leaves are breaking down. It's just like small little particles. Okay, I scooped out a bunch of them by hand. You can see it's just packed with leaves still. Smaller pieces. I'm gonna start vacuuming this out. But it's hard to even see the push rods. There's so many leaves and crap in here. Well, I'll go with the vacuum cleaner now. See what I can do. Clogging up my vacuum cleaner. Alright guys, I've got it cleaned up pretty well. It's quite a bit of rust on these lifters and the bores, and it was they were caked in there pretty good. So my next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the plugs, and I've got an inspection camera. What I'm going to do is look inside the cylinders and see if a lot of moisture got inside the engine. If it looks like it's the bores are rusted. Alright, here's the spark plug. Pretty black looking. Doesn't look, wore out or anything, and it looks like they're gapped for HEI. Let's see what kind of plug we got. AC Delco R45TS. That's the plug you would put in a motor, a small block Chevy that has HEI in it, so you can gap them at 45. This is a 73, so it should have R44Ts, I believe, is the plug. It should be in there. Well, we're going to take a look. We're going to put the scope in the cylinder. Just take a look, see what the cylinder looks like. Look at this camera here. And it's got a long scope on the end. See, it's got a light on it. I can change the light. And this, what's nice about this one, it'll actually focus to a real close range. Some of these cameras, you buy them and they will not focus on something that's close to them. So let's see if I can, I'm going to zoom in on the screen here. Lower this down. It's not so, there we go. So I want to put my finger on top of there, and you can just about see my fingerprints. So that's just, quarter inch away from the camera. So anyway, this one focuses in real close. So let's put it in the cylinder, see what happens here. I think I might have had part of the cylinder head in there. So the cylinders look pretty rust-free, what I can tell here. So there's a good chance this motor might turn over. This particular cylinder, I'm going to check all the cylinders, see if I find any rust in them, and I'll shoot a little bit of oil inside the cylinders and see if I can get this motor to turn. I think the worst part's going to be the way these lifters are seized in their bores. Might have trouble turning the motor, so I'm going to get to this and I'll report back to you in a minute. Alright, here's number 5 cylinder. Boy, it looks really oily. Take a look at that. Really crusty, oily. This thing's burning quite a bit of oil, I'd say. I'm going to have to get some new plugs and put them in before I start it. But that's just a kind of an indicator what the motor's looking like. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this borescope camera down into the cylinder head ports on the intake side and just see if we can see valves open, whatever we can see down the intake, see if there's any leaves still down in that intake ports. Now that one obviously has trash down in it still. You can see the leaves. Vacuum that out. This one has some leaves down in it too, I can see. I'm going to have to vacuum that out. Alright guys, I've got the intake area cleaned out pretty good, and I sprayed PB Blaster all along the lifters and inside these intake ports. I vacuumed out as best as I could. I don't know if you can be able to see down in there very well, but there was quite a bit of leaves. I think rats had taken up residence in some of these ports, but I vacuumed out best as I could. we're just going to try to get this running a little bit just so I can move the car around. And right now I'm in the process of getting this clutch fan off. These are always fun because you don't have a lot of room to work to get at the bolts. So far I got all the bolts off, but it's still kind of locked on there. I'm gonna have to wiggle it a little while until it comes loose. It's starting to come. There it goes. There it is. I freed that up. Alright. Now I can get at the crank pulley. Take this water pump pulley off. And the belt is rusted to the crank. Alright. Got all that. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a socket onto the crank pulley. I'm going to try to turn the motor a little bit at a time and see if I can rock this thing loose. After looking inside the cylinders, my little camera, looks like inside there's a little speckles of rust in some of the cylinders, but most of them are pretty much rust free. So mainly what I have to deal with is the rust around these lifters, which that PB Blaster, it looks already better, like they loosen it up. And I spray some PB Blaster down the ports in case the valves are sticking to the seats. So here we go. I'm going to get my 1/2-inch drive and we'll try to turn this thing over a little bit. Okay, here we go. Try to turn this motor. Oh Lord. It's tight. The bolt's tightening. Okay guys, I hope this works. I've got the battery all charged up, cleaned the terminals real good. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and crank the motor with the key. I put a 5/8 socket on the crank bolt and I couldn't get the engine to budge. It was tightening. I was getting the bolt really tight and I ended up snapping it off or stripping out the crank bolt threads. So got it charged. It's not a real good battery, but hopefully if it's enough to crank this over. Give it a try here. I've seen it move a tiny bit. The motor moved a little bit. I think it's a little stuck. Motor's definitely stuck. It's not stuck in the cylinders because disconnecting this charging cord here. It's not stuck in the cylinders because I put a camera inside the more than half of the cylinders. I put a camera inside and I didn't see any rust. Where it's stuck is these lifters look like they're kind of rusted in, especially the ones in the back here. Look at that. Pretty rusted in, so. But it did move a slight amount. Just gonna try that some more. And maybe it'll loosen up. Put a crank over. If not, I'm gonna make a tool, since I'm about where I live is 20 miles from town. 20 miles from the nearest town with an auto parts store. So I was going to make a tool to bolt onto the crank and weld on a bar to it and see if I can just turn the motor by hand, kind of rock it back and forth with the bar until things loosen up. Object is to get this motor running. I got an intake and a carburetor for it. Right, so I got my crank pulley so I can make this tool. we're going to center that over the saw blade hole. I'm going to drill these other holes out. Okay, got 3 holes there. I'm going to drill those out. Then what I'm going to do, I've got this, this is an antenna pole that I flattened it out on one end, and I cleaned it up so I can weld it on there. And I'll arrange this in a way. I'll probably have to drill a hole through it too, the middle. Weld this on there, or it won't interfere with those holes. I figure I could use this to bolt it to the harmonic balancer and rock it back and forth, and see if I can get this motor unstuck. Alright guys, here's what I ended up with. Some scrap I had laying around, some old saw blades. I've welded 2 of them together. This is a little thicker, and an old antenna mast welded onto them, and I drilled them all out so it matches the harmonic balancer. So I got about a 3-foot handle on here. We're going to bolt this onto the harmonic balancer. This is going to give me a way where I can turn the motor both ways, just rock it back and forth. Okay, well guys, that did not work. It bent here. It's just too thin a metal. I'm going to need a really heavy pipe. I'm going to have to weld another pipe onto here. That's a little thicker. As soon as I tried moving the motor, it started bending in here. Okay, this is going to be try number 2. I welded a nut onto the same blade, broke that handle off since that was just too weak. I kind of had an idea that might have been too thin of metal for a handle, but I don't have anything else laying around that's thicker, so I welded this nut on here. So I'm going to put a big socket on there, bolt these bolts in. Alright guys, I got that nut welded on there, and I've got a bar on my 1/2-inch drive, so we're going to give it a turn. It's a 21mm nut. Ended up being. I'm going to give it a turn, see if I can unstick this motor. Hopefully I had PB blaster sitting in the cylinders overnight, and hopefully it'll budge. It's tight. Oh, it's moving. It's moving. It moved about an inch. There we go. Oh, it's tight though. Okay, some of these, the cam definitely moved because some of the lifters, I just tapped them down like they were stuck in up position, and I tapped them down into their bores. These back here, see that one just went down into his bore a little bit. That one there too. Let me rock it back and forth a little bit. I think I'm going to rock it back and forth. Get it to loosen up in the bores a little bit. Alright guys, I spun this motor over by hand about 20 or 30 times, and I watched every valve lifter, and they're all going up and down except for one, which I've been spraying. This one comes to that one, it goes up and it doesn't seat all the way back down. So I've been spraying it, tapping it back in the hole. It's starting to get better because it was hanging up higher earlier. Also, as I'm spinning it around, I'm getting some gas out of the tank. Take a look at this. I'll spin it. If I can set my camera here, it'll stay. Watch that. And it's spinning good. See how fuel pump is pumping. I can spin this thing pretty fast. Fast enough. That's pumping fuel out of the gas tank. Alright, I've got my boost box on there. Plus I'm charging it with a charger. So hopefully that's enough juice to turn this thing over. Get it to spin a little bit. There we go. Boost boxes. I ran that boost box down fast. I think the starter was drawing a lot of power. But it spun pretty good. Hoping it has enough. Maybe that. I'll probably just need a new battery. Get a nice new battery in here. And it should spin over a lot better than that. But it's spun a couple revolutions at least with the starter, so should have no problem starting it. I'm going to get started here on putting in the intake. I've got an intake carburetor for it. I got a old Quadrajet intake and carburetor. I'll swap that onto there and hopefully get this thing running.